This is Inspirational Women, a weekly series shining the spotlight on female trailblazers making a true difference in our community. Once again, here is Kate Daniels.
Aimee Khuu, the Executive Director of Tacoma Community House, joins us now to bring a spotlight to an organization that has been doing the invaluable work of serving immigrants, refugees, homeless youth, and low-income residents in the Pacific Northwest for 116 years. And it is so critical in strengthening the local community, promoting inclusion, diversity, and opportunity. Aimee Khuu, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
I really appreciate that we have this opportunity. I only got to meet you a couple weeks ago and at a community event, at a church event that where you were the recipient of some of the monetary funds of that event, and so I learned that Tacoma Community House exists, and so I get a little inkling of it, but I thought, this is an important conversation to let a broader audience know about who you are and what you do. So can you give us an overview of Tacoma Community House?
Absolutely. Tacoma Community House has been serving the Pacific Northwest community for 116 years. Originally formed as a Methodist settlement house, the organization has always looked to ways that we can bring our community together. And so in the early days, there were Norwegian, Italian, Scandinavian immigrants in the hilltop community of Tacoma. And the community house opened its doors to bring people of different walks of life together to say, how do we support one another? And really, what does it mean for us to belong to one another? So in the early days, there was a basketball team, a sewing club, English language classes, citizenship programs. And in many ways, here we are 116 years later, we continue to be a community center where we have community members coming together, learning English, working toward their career aspirations, navigating the financial system. We have a legal team. The organization is Department of Justice accredited to do legal immigration services. So we support people on the pathway to citizenship, to green cards, to adjusting their status. And we also have a program that supports youth. And in Pierce County, we have many youth who have housing instability or who are looking for pathways to stability and employment. And so we walk alongside them on that journey, providing housing stability, navigating the job sector, and providing case management. It's really an extraordinary organization that serves over 3,800 people a year, supporting them on the pathway to stability and self-sufficiency.
And thinking of serving that many people, I imagine, the time frame, some may be there for just a short bit. Do some of them kind of roll over year to year, perhaps, and maybe in different situations? Maybe they even become a volunteer themselves.
That's right. We actually have 6 levels of English, and each class is 1 quarter long. So if someone were to go from level 1 to level 6, that might take a year and a half and perhaps maybe even longer, as you can imagine how challenging that journey is.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, our front desk, I often refer to as the refugee resource hub of Pierce County. And so as immigrants are looking for a resource and navigating healthcare and childcare and transportation, services, they may come in and just pop in to see if there's something that we can do for them, and we can provide them with one-time support. So it really does range the amount of time that people spend with our organization.
Yes. So I watched a bit of a video on regarding Tacoma Community House from your website, which we should mention, so people can take a look there themselves. The website is
www.tacomacommunityhouse.org.
So lots of information there. But in watching that, and I got a sense of what happens there. Well, one of them being the language classes, and how I was really, really impressed by some of these people, came from Ukraine because of the war. They're displaced here, and their English was really remarkable considering the short time frame. So maybe they had some skill prior to that, but I think they were attesting to this happening at Tacoma Community House. So it's just such an invaluable resource.
Okay, Katie, I wish we could go into one of our classes for this conversation, because the best day of the week for anyone is when they participate in talk time. And that's an opportunity to just sit down with our students and hear some of their stories. You get to practice English with them. They get a chance to hear your accent and be able to navigate a basic conversation with someone from the community. And the stories that we hear are remarkable. So many people have come from environments that are hard to imagine, whether experiencing war or persecution. And everyone has a thread of ambition. And it might be to start their own business. It might be starting life again and finding a pathway for their children. It might be their own educational journey. But every single one of them are hustling to restart life, to find out what opportunities are before them. And I think we often forget that so many of our businesses are run by immigrants and refugees who are taking a risk, who are perhaps investing their skills into our economy and building and creating new jobs for our cities, for our counties. And so I like to say that every story of an immigrant is a transformative story, whether it's a transformative experience for them, having gone through a journey of arriving in the United States, but it is always a transformative experience for us to hear those stories and to imagine all that people have been through and then thrive in when they arrive in the United States.
Yes. And that invariably they do need to have that kind of support. Others may have family that they've come and connected with, but I think with Tacoma Community House, here they have just a broader spectrum of connections they can make and so many resources. You were saying like education classes beyond just learning language.
That's absolutely right. My family arrived to the United States in the 1970s, and my grandfather spoke 4 languages. He had a whole career, a business. I can't imagine all of the skills that he really had when he arrived in the United States. But unfortunately, he worked at a hospital in a cafeteria until his dying day. There wasn't anyone to help him navigate the job sector or to really think about what are those transferable skills that he could bring to our economy, and how enriching that would be for our society and for him and our family. And so a lot of my inspiration comes from the what ifs. What if someone had been there for my grandfather to navigate? What if there had been a Tacoma Community House? What if people had wrapped their arms around him and said, how can we help you be successful here in the United States? And that's what I see our caseworkers doing every day for our immigrant community. I get shivers just thinking about it, because that level of support and care, everyone deserves. And I love the fact, and I love seeing that happen within our building and between each immigrant and staff member of our organization.
Oh, that gives me chills. It's how rewarding that is to help someone and to give them, a step forward. And well, I'm actually an immigrant myself. My mother was an immigrant. It was after World War II that she left Europe and landed in Canada. So I left Canada and moved to the U.S. Not a challenging transition, as immigration goes. I mean, I didn't have to learn a new language, did I? So I can't even imagine, really. I can only appreciate how having to learn another language. You said your grandfather knew 4 languages. English was perhaps not one of them when he came here. And so then he had a 5th language that he knew, right?
That's right. And when you come into our building and get to know our immigrant communities, they all speak multiple languages. It used to be called English as a second language. It's now called English language acquisition because we recognize that our students, certainly it's rarely their second language. They speak so many different languages.
Which is something, we should appreciate, because generally here we're speaking one language. So to be in possession of so many languages, really appreciating the richness and value that has is really something.
That's right. I speak Spanish and an elementary level of Vietnamese. But I will tell you, I have a whole different personality in Spanish, and it's opened my ability to be able to connect with people in many different countries and have enriching experiences that you can have while not speaking another language, but the depth is often limited.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really believe that speaking one another's language, really does open us up to a deeper understanding of culture, of a richness that really enhances our own lives and allows us to get to know other communities in really profound ways.
Really.
Language is extraordinary in that way. So much of culture is language. And so at the community house, we're often able to learn about other people's cultures. They certainly get an opportunity to meet and connect with people here in the United States at the community house. But, we serve people from over 100 different countries. And so all of the different languages and I will tell you, they are the best potlucks in the whole world. You'll have to come to one of our potlucks sometime in December and in the summer.
Whoa, that's an incredible invitation. Yes, sign me up. Hearing you talk about this work that you do, Aimee, and learning a little bit of what your background has been, you're the executive director now at Tacoma Community House. How did you come to be there?
Well, do you want the long version or the short version?
Whatever you wish to share.
At an early age, I was invited to get to know immigrant communities. Of course, my family being from Vietnam, culture and getting to know other people from other countries was always something that intrigued me. But in junior high, I had a youth minister, Jan Klein, who invited me to the migrant camps of the Skagit Valley. And if you've ever been to a migrant camp where those who pick the fruits and vegetables that are on our tables at dinner time, if you get a chance to go to where they live, you will be surprised. The first time I went to a migrant camp, the only thing that I could compare it to was a Japanese internment camp. And I sat back and I thought, as a 7th grader, how is it that people don't know the stories of migrant workers? A small bedroom in which there were 4 to 8 people living, a small Bunsen burner that they were cooking their food over, a bathroom that was shared among 100 different community members. It was really quite shocking for me. And as a young person, I would say that it really raised a level of awareness in me about the conditions that migrant communities and immigrants live in. And it drew me back to my own family's history and made me want to know more about our immigration journey. So for several decades, I spent time traveling to war-torn countries, to learning the stories of immigrant families, to understanding why people migrate and what that experience can mean for them, for those that they leave behind, and then for those who are born here. I would say Immigrant Stories has transformed every way that I think about the world, and certainly has made me the person that I am today. And so coming to Tacoma Community House was really a dream fulfilled. I now get to be kind of on the other end of supporting immigrants. When I think about my family arriving in the 1970s, how I wish there had been a Tacoma Community House for them. And so now, in many ways, I can pay that forward. And it's really, truly an honor that I don't take for granted.
Mhm. That is an incredible and beautiful story. And I feel with what you've shared and how you are where you are landed right now, the authenticity that you bring to your role, it's not, from book learning or just, which isn't wrong, but having had that experience, I think gives you just a different sense of how you are with people, that there's a different passion, I think, and your face just lights up when you talk about being able to communicate in Spanish, and what a difference that makes for you and for the people that you communicate with. So it's really a beautiful story.
Thank you. And, I think it speaks to how our organization operates. It's one thing to provide services, it's another to really understand what
Yeah.
people are going through and be able to journey with them. And so you mentioned some of the stories that you saw on our website. If you come into our building and you get to know our staff, the vast majority of our staff have lived experience, which means that they may be an immigrant themselves. They may have experienced homelessness. They may have been recipients within our programs. So many of them studied English within our education center and are now staff being able to support community members who went through very similar journeys that they went through. I have seen this organization really value lived experience at every level, whether that's our board, our management team, or our staff and advisory committees. So I stand in awe of immigrants all of the time, but those that I love to champion in this role is our staff and the many ways that they continue to give in spite of perhaps a lot of the hardship that they may have lived through.
So some of them have been recipients of the service and services and have come to be staff members.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel and look up Tacoma Community House, you can see the stories of specific community members, what they went through, and then now what they're doing. It's amazing.
And it just, oh, it's what we are, right? Isn't that what our who we are to be when we come into this world, is to uh, really become the best of what we are. And some people just come from very challenging circumstances. Those of us who perhaps have overcome some or didn't have those, to be there to support each other and encourage and walk alongside. Isn't that really what we are as community?
That's right. It reminds me of this TED talk by a Vietnamese woman, a business owner who traveled from Vietnam to Australia, much like my family did on boats. And she tells the story of her mother and her grandmother and her on the boat, going into the unknown and arriving in a new country and having to start over, and her grandmother dying, and what that meant for her. And it's just this extraordinary story. But she ends and she says, if I could wish this upon my children and guarantee their safety, I would, because I fear the life of ease, comfort, and privilege.
Mhm.
And there is something very powerful about that for me, that I often think about where resilience comes from and how much people have to give when they really can understand the journey that they've been in and learn from that and consider, what does that mean to um, to move into that next phase of perhaps that suffering, and support that person coming up behind you.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. And as you share that, and it brings to mind that the image and the sort of nugget of a story of a young child and a caterpillar in a cocoon, and it being aware that, oh, it's struggling in this cocoon. Oh, maybe if I just kind of open it up for them, that'll help that butterfly to come out. But no, what happens? The butterfly then falls down and dies because it didn't have the struggle to strengthen those wings to be able to move and to fly. So, not that we want everyone to suffer, but there's something to be said with having the challenges and, walking alongside so that there doesn't have to be extraordinary suffering.
Yeah.
That's what community is. Right?
That's so powerful. I can see that. I have 2 young children.
Yes.
and we often have to balance that as parents, don't we?
Yes.
We want to tie their shoes. We want to help put their jackets on. We want to make sure that they're not going to struggle and suffer. And yet, how else do they learn?
Yes.
So I don't want people to have to go through suffering for suffering's sake, but I think about the learning that exists from having gone through so much, and it teaches us. It inevitably will teach us if we look for those lessons.
Yes, absolutely. And we know that there are extraordinary challenges in some cases, and yes, too much suffering is not a great value to have. We don't want to be part of imposing that, and we see the struggles, a lot of struggles in our communities these days, and Tacoma Community House is there to help the broader community around there. You're still located up in the Hilltop area, are you?
We are. We have a second site in South Tacoma in the Parkland area, but our main campus is on the Hilltop.
Okay. And so, do you have a need for volunteers?
Always. And I invite people to, first and foremost, learn the stories of immigrant communities. I think right now is an interesting time in our country in which perhaps an anti-immigrant sentiment or a lack of understanding might fill the narrative or fill those gaps with information. And yet the invitation that I think is most powerful right now is to get to know immigrants themselves and discover how you can be a partner and a support system for organizations and communities at risk. We have opportunities to participate in talk time, to support our programs. We have a luncheon coming up on May 1st at Hotel Murano. And if you go to tacomacommunityhouse.org, you can find information about that event. And we welcome the community to come and join us, to hear the stories of our clients and to discover ways that they can then lean in and support.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And we can get all the information and register online at your site, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
You can also find us on Facebook if you look up Tacoma Community House.
Perfect. And of course, these funds are important in terms of being able to continue the programs for everyone who's participating. Yes, we're mentioning talk time, but there's also providing, I think, food services and support with legal issues that might surface for various reasons. All of that funding is important to support those events going on, right?
That's right. And also emergency support. As we know, there are some families that are experiencing separation. And when a spouse and a child are left behind, they often don't have anywhere to turn. And so we want to make sure that we can have emergency support available for individuals who experience that separation.
So again, really important to be able to walk alongside. And we're talking about the struggles and the images we shared. That struggle is happening, but that doesn't mean the person should just be left on their own. if we're witnessing this, if we're aware of this, there's a role that we play. It may be to be there personally to support, but it may be the financial support. That is also a very valuable aspect of all of this.
Yes, as you can imagine right now, especially with public funding being cut for nonprofits, increased need for immigrant communities, public support is more important than ever. So I welcome any support that people might be able to provide. And if they want to learn more, they're welcome to reach out to me. Again, www.tacomacommunityhouse.org.
And, it comes to me in terms of finances and support. We all know at times are really challenging that way with the costs increasing. So we find that happening on a personal level. For an organization, that's just multiplied so many more times. So again, if we find that we have some extra resources, there's just this great need that's going to help so many who find themselves in probably much more challenging situations than we find ourselves in. So it's like open up our hearts, right? And listen. And as you invited us to do, Aimee, is to go to the website and see the stories, listen to what the stories are.
That's right. That's right. And reach out to me directly. My information is on the website, and would love for you to come in for a tour to learn about the programs and to have a conversation about what's happening right now in our community and how can we all lean in to create a system that nobody falls through the cracks, that those who are most vulnerable have the support that they need, and that we can create that web so that youth, children, families are really best positioned to thrive in an environment that can be really complicated to navigate.
Yes. And I like to think to a chain, and how we're only as strong as the weakest link. So it's so important to help each other to be strong.
That's right.
Well, Aimee Khuu, it's just been wonderful to connect with you, to hear about Tacoma Community House, all the important work that's happening, and to your invitation to us to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you for the time. It's such a pleasure to spend some time with you, and I appreciate your questions and including us in this podcast.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here this morning to meet these strong community advocates and leaders, providing us with information and insights about the good things that are happening here in our area. Please check this station's website for the podcasts for more information about these guests, and please share the stories with your family and friends. I'm Kate Daniels. If you'd like to connect with me, simply send me an email, katedaniels@hubbardradio.com. And be inspired to reach out and make a difference in someone's life today.
Thank you for listening to Inspirational Women. Tune in every Sunday morning at this time to hear about those truly empowering the Northwest community, all for the greater good. Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women are a public service of Hubbard Radio Seattle.